What's going on, guys? Tyler here from Don'tPanicDoThis.com, the site all about helping you to beat your panic attacks and anxiety. Now, I had a question that I wanted to answer in this video, and that question is, what is the best tea for anxiety? Now, if any of you guys have ever walked around your local grocery store or a major retailer going down the coffee and tea aisle, you've probably seen a ton of different teas that advertise buzzwords like good for sleep, stress relief, calming, relaxing, stuff like that. I saw all these teas for so long and I always wondered, can they actually help me with symptoms of anxiety, helping me to relax a little bit, take the edge off of my nerves or jitters, anything like that? So that is exactly the question that I wanted to answer with this video, and to do so, I went to my local grocery stores, my local retailers, and I bought over 20 different teas and sampled all of them in different situations, different times throughout the day to try and determine which one was the best to relieve my symptoms of anxiety, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. It's important to note before we go any further that I am not a doctor, I am not a medical professional, I cannot give you any sort of medical advice. So if you're trying any of this stuff for the first time, please consult with your doctor, especially if you're on any type of medication already or if you have existing health conditions that might interact with a new ingredient. Because just because this stuff is pretty much all natural ingredients doesn't necessarily mean that they're weak ingredients, and they can absolutely interact with certain medications. So it's really, really important that you talk to your doctor before trying any of this stuff, especially some of the stronger ones that we talk about at the end. It's also important to note that none of these teas are intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any type of disease, especially anxiety. It's not intended to treat anxiety. I'm just talking about my experience with these teas and how they worked for me. Hopefully they work the same for you guys, but I can't make any promises there. Now, like I said, I did try each of these teas myself in a number of different situations. I tried them while just going into stressful situations. I tried them before bed. I tried them in the morning, in the middle of the day. So I definitely tried them, you know, all over the place at all different times to make sure I'm getting a really good read of what these supplements, what these teas rather, can actually do for you. So I do have a winner already. I'm actually sipping on it now, because, like I said, this is the one that was the best for my anxiety symptom relief. I'm not going to tell you which one it is until the end because I want to give you guys a reason to stick around. But if you're in a rush, feel free to just hop on to the end. Also, guys, it is important to note that if you wanted to, you can follow along. I'm going to post an article right below this video, a link to that article. That is going to be a much more comprehensive article, basically going into all of the details about these teas, different ingredients, different ways that I ran the experiments, and it's just going to be a lot more thorough because I don't want this video to go on for an hour. I want it to be reasonably concise. So if you guys want a way more thorough understanding of everything that I did here, feel free to follow along with that article. Also, I'll probably update that article over time, whereas I really won't be coming in and updating this video. So if I do try additional teas in the future, I would consider that article to be a living piece of work that I will add to over time, and it's entirely possible that by the time you see this video, there are even more teas added to this experiment that you can find the results of on that video, on that article. So definitely do check it out. That's with that said, guys, let's get right into this and talk about the way that I chose each of these teas and what they did for me. The way that I chose these particular teas was just walking up and down the aisles of multiple grocery stores looking for keywords like stress relief, calming, relaxation, for sleep aid, stuff along that lines. I also avoided anything with caffeine in it, so all of these are herbal teas that are non-caffeinated. And this is because I just feel it's completely counterintuitive for anybody with anxiety to be consuming caffeine, especially in the long run. Some of these brands do come up more than others. You'll see here Yogi and Celestial Seasonings come up a bunch of times. That's not because of any inherent bias on my part. It's not because they were my favorite before this experiment. It's just because they had the widest selection of herbal teas, whereas other tea brands kind of specialize in caffeinated teas more so than the herbal teas. So that's why you see these more than once. Now, something major that I noticed pretty quickly was that there are certain ingredients that you see time and time again in these teas, and that's how I kind of figured out that some of them are definitely more important ingredients than others. I definitely was able to isolate which ingredients I enjoy or I find more effective for stress relief and the relief of anxiety symptoms, and we will talk about that in this video. You know, which ingredients are important and which ones are more along the lines of just fillers or flavor additives or myths that I wouldn't waste time with. So let's take a closer look at the ingredients and figure out, you know, which ones we should be looking for in our tea. Once I had my list of teas completed for this experiment, I took a close look at the ingredients on the back of every single box of these teas. I was able to determine which ingredients were the most popular and came up frequently versus which ones really only came up occasionally. I also was able to associate which ingredients worked for me based on which teas they were in that worked versus which ingredients probably were only there as a flavor additive or a filler because those teas didn't really seem to do much for me at all. On top of this, I looked through any scientific studies I could find online to associate anti-anxiety benefits with any of the ingredients in these teas. I will link to those studies for each ingredient on the article that is associated with this video, which I will link to below. However, I'm not going to go into each study in great detail on this particular video. Also, there are ingredients that were, not quite as likely to have an effect, but they might have an effect on your anxiety levels, and ingredients that probably won't have an effect on your anxiety levels at all. I cover those in the article, but I'm not going to talk about them in this video. In this video, I'm just going to talk about the ingredients in these teas that I think will probably have a significant impact on your anxiety symptom level. Let's talk a little bit about some of the ingredients that probably contribute to anxiety relief in these teas. First, I want to talk about chamomile, which is hands down the most common ingredient found in any herbal tea blend. Chamomile is known to reduce stress and anxiety, and one study even found it safe and effective as a long-term treatment for generalized anxiety disorder. Chamomile can definitely help you to relax a bit, but it's very mild in my opinion. Many people may not feel that chamomile alone makes a significant improvement to their stress levels. Next, we have passion flower. Now, passion flower is probably one of the most effective anti-anxiety herbs I've found so far. Passion flower may seem mild compared to powerful anti-anxiety drugs, but it works extremely well for an herbal solution. In addition to decreasing symptoms of anxiety, passion flower may also be useful for some people with insomnia or heart problems. If you check out our full article on passion flower for anxiety, you can learn a lot more about this ingredient in particular. Now we have valerian, which research on valerian is limited with no clear conclusions about its effectiveness with regard to anxiety. Nevertheless, people around the world do use it for help with symptoms of anxiety and depression and as a sleep aid. I hate the smell of this stuff in tea, but I do find that it absolutely makes me more relaxed and ready for sleep. So it is a worthwhile ingredient in my opinion. Now, lavender, while it's easy to hear the word lavender and dismiss it as folklore nonsense, research has found that lavender is an effective way to reduce anxiety symptoms. Personally, I hate the taste of lavender in tea. If I want the benefits of lavender, I much prefer them through an essential oil diffuser. With that said, I do believe that lavender in tea can help to reduce symptoms of anxiety. We also have L-theanine. When people talk about green tea being great for you, this is the amino acid responsible for those benefits. Obviously, none of the teas mentioned in this article are green or black tea, since we're looking for caffeine-free only solutions, but L-theanine can still be an added ingredient. And studies suggest that it could decrease stress-related symptoms while boosting cognitive function and sleep quality. While my own personal experience with L-theanine is limited as of right now, I do believe it can be an effective solution for symptoms of anxiety. We also have skullcap leaf, which one study found that American skullcap brought about a positive boost in mood without a reduction to cognition or energy. It's believed that skullcap works by modulating GABA pathways in the brain, suggesting its potential as an anti-anxiety supplement. I've never tried skullcap by itself, but the literature looks promising to suggest that this may help to decrease feelings of anxiety. Finally, for the last ingredient that probably helps with anxiety-related symptoms, we have lemon balm, and lemon balm is pretty well documented as having anxiety-reducing benefits. A study found that lemon balm helped with mild to moderate anxiety disorders and sleep disturbances. So these are the most important ingredients in my opinion. We also do have a bunch of others. Other ones that may contribute to anxiety relief include ashwagandha, licorice root, cava, spearmint leaf, peppermint leaf, cinnamon bark, cardamom pod, lemongrass, organic California poppy plant. That's it for the ones that might help with anxiety relief. And then we also have a lot of ingredients in these teas that probably won't contribute to anxiety relief. Those include rooibos leaf, roasted chicory root, lemon peel, rose hips, nutmeg kernel. If you want more information about any of those, feel free to check out the full article. I go into each of them in much greater detail and include studies for the ones that it's relevant for. I'm not going to do that here. It would just take way too much time and it's probably not worth the effort for you guys. You want to hear about these teas. So let's get right into that. So something I quickly learned when I started this experiment was it would be probably impossible to actually rank them on a scale from 1 to 20 plus. Rather than that, I don't want to harp on little tiny differences, especially because some of these teas were so mild or just just didn't do that much, that it would actually be really hard to try and differentiate one tea from another, especially when the ingredient profile on some of them was so similar. Rather than come up with these arbitrary differences and pretend that I could actually rank them from 1 to 20 plus, I broke them into a tier system, which I thought made a little bit more sense, a little bit more intuitive. And that tier system goes from tier 1 to tier 5. 5 being the teas that really didn't do much for me at all, pretty ineffective, little to no effect on my general anxiety symptom levels, versus tier 1, where I actually felt significant improvement in my own stress levels and actually felt way, way, way more relaxed. So I do want to go into that. I want to break down each tier individually and talk about which teas I put in that tier and why, as well as focusing where it's relevant on little differences between the teas so that you can find maybe one that works better for you than the one that I chose as my personal best. So let's dive into that and talk about what I chose for tier 5. All right, so to get it started with tier 5 here, we have the teas that did little to nothing for my own stress and anxiety symptom levels. Now, what we ended up with were a couple of teas from the Celestial Seasonings variety pack, which included Celestial Seasonings Raspberry Zinger, Celestial Seasonings Wild Berry Zinger, and Celestial Seasonings True Blueberry. It's important to note, I'm not saying that any of these teas are bad, it's just that they didn't help me with anxiety at all. And that's okay. To be fair, they're not trying to do that. They are caffeine-free herbal teas, but they're not saying on the box, you know, calm, relaxing, anything like that, I don't think. So they're not really trying to be an anti-anxiety tea, which is totally okay. This can be seen as almost like a control group. They taste delicious. I'm not telling you not to buy them. I'm just saying don't expect them to have any effect on your stress levels. Now, the one exception that I would point out for this is if you have any sort of association with a pleasant memory or something like that from your childhood, it is possible that a certain flavor or smell, aroma, might actually reduce your anxiety levels just because of your association with that taste or aroma. So what I mean by that is, say you drank Celestial Seasonings Wild Berry Zinger regularly as a child and had pleasant memories with it. Now as an adult, maybe it's more relaxing to you than some of the other teas that I put in even better tiers. So, or you know, maybe you drink True Blueberry before bed every night, and now your body knows when you taste that True Blueberry tea, you feel more relaxed and ready to sleep. It's entirely possible that your association with certain flavors might actually create a beneficial effect for you, and that's something you might want to take into consideration, especially if you have a sleep ritual is a certain type of flavor that might help you to achieve that effect. But generally speaking, for most people, these aren't going to do anything unless you have that association there. So like I said, not bad teas. They taste delicious. I'm not telling you not to buy them. They're just not going to really have any real effect on your anxiety levels. The ingredients inside them really don't contain anything associated with any sort of anti-anxiety benefits or anything like that. All right, that brings us to tier 4, where we start to have some semblance of an effect on general relaxation levels. I wouldn't say that these effects were anything to write home about. They were very, very mild, but I do think that it was still existent and it's still worth mentioning. The thing that each of these teas have in common are chamomile. The previous tier, tier 5, didn't have any chamomile at all, any type of ingredients associated with anti-anxiety or stress, so that's why we really didn't feel anything on them. Now, this has chamomile in them, which is probably the most popular ingredient in any herbal tea you're going to find, and it does help you to relax a little bit. But like I said, it's really not going to take the edge off of any, in my opinion, any type of serious stress or anything like that. It's just a very, very mild effect, and chamomile is pretty much the only active ingredient in any of these teas that would work on your anxiety symptoms. So these teas include Celestial Seasonings Cinnamon and Apple Spice, Celestial Seasonings Peach and Black Cherry. We have Puka, Chamomile, Vanilla, and Manuka Honey, Tazo Calm Chamomile, and HEB Organics, which is just a straight chamomile from a local grocery store near me. It's their store brand. So, like I said, these are probably better than nothing, but it's nothing to write home about, and I'm not going to go into each tea individually just because they're all pretty much the same in terms of the effects that I felt. A very, very, very mild relaxation, nothing crazy to write home about. Now we get to tier 3, where things get a little bit more interesting. Most of these teas, that's these 4, minus these, the Yogi teas, these 4 all contain chamomile, so it's got what the previous tier, tier 4 has, but it also has additional ingredients that are associated with anti-anxiety benefits. Whereas these 2 teas don't possess chamomile, but they still have their own unique blend that's going to bump them up to tier 3 as opposed to tiers 4 or 5. Now, let's talk a little bit more about each tea individually. It is important to note that all these teas at least had some mild effect on my perceived anxiety symptom levels. But let's talk a little bit about each of them. So first we have this Versana Organic Slumber. Now this contains a decent list of ingredients aimed at calming the mind and body and relieving occasional tension. Chamomile, skullcap, and lavender are the most notable ingredients in this blend. It tastes pretty good and provided some relaxation and stress relief for me. So it gets a tier 3. Now we have this Bigelow Benefits Curing K-Cups. Now this is the only stress relief tea that I bought that came in K-Pods. I really wanted to like this just because of the convenience factor of it being in K-Cups, and I do have a Keurig machine that I really don't use for anything other than making hot water for teas. So I was excited to use a K-Cup version of an herbal stress relief tea. However, I was a little bit disappointed. I really didn't like the flavor at all. This is probably my least favorite tasting tea of all the teas I tasted. Just not enjoyable to me. And also, I don't know if it says it anywhere. I couldn't really find anything on the box here, but it doesn't really tell you the amounts of the ingredients in as much detail as pretty much any other tea. I prefer a greater degree of transparency and to just know exactly what I'm getting, at least of the more potent ingredients. And this has some potent ingredients in there, but it doesn't tell you how much. Regardless, the effect relative to the other teas I've had, I would say puts it in tier 3. It did decrease my symptoms of anxiety, but it wasn't anything completely crazy, but it was still pretty decent. So that gets a tier 3. Next we have here a Lipton Stress Therapy, which the ingredients of Lipton Stress Therapy are super straightforward and easy. It's just cinnamon bark, chamomile flowers, and organic lavender flowers. Simple is sometimes really good, and I think it is with this particular tea. Those are 3 ingredients that are known to help reduce stress and maybe even symptoms of anxiety. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's a nice little box here, and it worked. It made me feel a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more calm. So I can recommend it to people. But like I said, there is stronger stuff out there, but at least this is nice, simple, and straightforward with what's in it. Next we have Chai Diaries. Chai Diaries stood out to me due to the unique and attractive packaging. So you can see it's the only one that doesn't really come in a little cardboard box. It's some sort of tin or something like that. And even the tea bags, I don't know how well it'll show on the camera there. But the tea bags are just attractive. They're just well made. I can't really explain it any other way. It looks like they just put a little extra love into making this stuff. But you know, the ingredients themselves include chamomile, lemongrass, peppermint, and lavender, which may contribute to the stress relieving and relaxing effects of the tea. This tea was somewhat relaxing for me, and it tasted pretty good. So all in all, I would say tier 3. It falls in that somewhat relaxing category. It's a little bit more than just slightly relaxing. It's somewhat relaxing. So these are the ones that focus on chamomile plus other anti-anxiety type ingredients. And now we're going to get over to these two, which are a little bit more interesting, a little bit more unique. So first we have the Yogi Sweet Clementine Support, and the most interesting thing in this, there's a whole little list of ingredients, but the one that really stands out to me as being the most effective is the ashwagandha root. Ashwagandha is an adaptogen known to help you manage stress, decrease stress levels. I believe it works on the adrenal glands or something along those lines, but it works pretty darn well. I mean, the first couple of times I tried it, it doesn't feel like the other teas because it doesn't make you tired at all. Like at all. Most of them make you at least a little bit like ready for bed, like a little bit relaxed and chilled out. This didn't really make me feel relaxed at all, which can be a good thing for some people, especially if you're trying to take it during the day, because I did feel, I don't even know how to describe it. I guess like better able to deal with stress would be a good way of saying it. I entered a stressful situation after having a cup, just 1 cup of this, and I felt a little bit better able to handle the situation. I didn't feel any type of anxiety welling up that I had to manage. It just didn't come up at all. And I do want to say that this can work, and I do want to say it would be somewhat effective for decreasing symptoms of anxiety, but also it's not going to hit you quite as hard as some of the stuff we have in the later tiers. So I would say that this is somewhat effective. Finally, we have Cava Stress Relief. Now, Cava, if you guys have seen other articles or videos by me, you know I'm a fan of Cava. I actually really like Cava as an ingredient. There are some other ingredients in here that can be effective or may be effective, like cinnamon bark and maybe cardamom pod. But the one that I was most interested in, obviously, was the Cava. That is the appeal to this particular tea. It is the thing that makes it interesting, the thing that makes it stand out. My problem with this is that there's just something about Cava in tea form that's not quite the same as getting Cava in another type of form. So I really prefer, if you guys want to try Cava, this just honestly isn't the way I would go. I would go with either a Cava shaker bottle. I have a whole, you can make it at home. I have a whole video review of that, or you can find it on the site where you can learn a little bit more about how to prepare Cava from home, fresh Cava with ground Cava root powder. Or you could just go to a Cava bar if you're just trying to try it once, one and done, something like that. Or Cava stress relief candies, those work pretty well as well. I really enjoy those. But the tea form just doesn't do it for me. I don't know if I would need to have more of it to feel it or what, but something about it being in the tea bag, I don't have the scientific research to back this theory up, but I just feel like it doesn't quite activate the cavalactones in the same way that shaking it up in the traditional way does, because I really don't feel the Cava at all. I don't taste it at all, which might be a good thing for some because Cava is not really a great taste, but for me, it just didn't really feel like the Cava was there. I guess I felt somewhat more relaxed, so I will put it in tier 3, especially because the ingredient, in theory, should be pretty decent. So other people might have some luck with it, but like I said, if you're trying to try Cava, this just isn't the way that I would go. So any of these teas that you see here, I believe are somewhat effective at decreasing symptoms of anxiety, but not quite the best ways. Now we're gonna hop over to the next tier where I think it might be a little bit more effective and worth your time. Okay, now we got tier 2 here. This is where I would draw the line in the sand and say that the teas in this tier and beyond, so tier 2 and tier 1, this is where I actually think that the teas are worth your time and money to check out. Not that the other ones were bad, but if you're gonna get a tea, tier 2 or up is the way to go, in my opinion. So what we have here are the teas that were decently effective. Like, I actually thought they took a pretty solid amount off of my anxiety symptoms, and that's what any of these could possibly do for you. That's what they did for me. So let's start first with Yogi Honey Lavender Stress Relief. Now, Yogi Honey Lavender Stress Relief is like the other teas. It's got a bunch of different ingredients in it. It has, chamomile, lavender, but it also has a handful of other ingredients that might be beneficial, such as lemon balm, lemongrass, spearmint, peppermint. The most important ingredient in this, however, is going to be the passion flower plant extract, which is definitely worth focusing on. Like I said, passion flower is probably one of the most effective ingredients, natural ingredients for stress relief, in my opinion, in my experience of trying all these things. So that alone, plus a host of other ingredients in this, actually make it a pretty effective stress relief tea, in my opinion. Definitely worth a try. Next, we have Yogi Soothing Caramel Bedtime. Now, this one's really interesting because, yes, it has chamomile in it like the others. It also has a bunch of other potentially helpful ingredients like cinnamon bark. Also has skullcap leaf, cardamom pod, stuff like that. So it's got a lot of ingredients in it. They definitely chose these ingredients with purpose. It wasn't just completely random like some of the other teas out there. But they also have organic California poppy plant, which I don't know how I feel about. People are advertising it as stress relief and stuff, but the studies that I've seen are not anything crazy. However, they also have L-theanine, suntheanine, which is a brand of L-theanine. And L-theanine is an awesome way. We talked about it a little bit earlier. It's just an awesome cognitive booster slash stress relief supplement. And it definitely shines through in this supplement because this definitely helps take the edge off of my anxiety symptoms and helps me to relax a bit. Now, something I would point out, just the flavor in general about this. I didn't like it at first, but weirdly enough, after I had it a couple of times, it kind of grew on me and I started to like it more and more. And now I actually enjoy the taste. I think that it's a pretty good just tea throughout the day or before bed, whenever you want. But like I said, L-theanine is also a cognitive booster, so you don't necessarily have to use this for sleep. You can get other benefits out of it besides just the bedtime that it advertises. So give it a try for yourself and see what you think. Finally, we have Celestial Seasonings Sleepy Time. So we already talked a lot about some of the other Celestial Seasonings in tier 5 and 4 that didn't do quite so much, but this one is a little bit more effective. It only has a couple of ingredients in it. It has chamomile, Tilia estrella, valerian, spearmint, lemongrass, and hawthorn. The main ones to look at here are like chamomile and valerian. Tilia estrella, or Turnströmia pringlae, as the scientific name for it. I tried to do research on it. I really did, and I couldn't find that much solid information about it. So I'm just gonna kind of brush over it. I assume it's in there for a reason, but I don't really know what that reason is. The chamomile and valerian, obviously the chamomile we know all about. That's gonna give you some mild stress relief. And then the valerian, this is the first time we've talked about valerian in a tea, not just as an ingredient, but the valerian actually works quite well. It makes me a bit drowsy, which I'll talk a little bit more about in just a bit, but it does definitely take the bulk of my stress symptoms or anxiety symptoms away. So I do actually like it. However, the smell is very off-putting to me, and I believe that's the valerian. I just don't like the smell of valerian, and it's very strong in this. See what you think, but the smell and the taste is just a bit off-putting for me. But any of these teas should do a decent job of taking off symptoms of anxiety. They certainly did for me. Now, finally, we're at tier 1. These are the teas that did the most for taking off symptoms of anxiety for me. These are the teas that didn't leave me wondering, like, okay, do I feel it? I think I feel something. Is it working yet? I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to wait for it. These teas actually packed a punch that I knew. I was like, okay, I feel that. I feel this way. This made me feel differently almost immediately. So, these are the most potent ingredients, in my opinion, for stress relief or relaxation or anything like that. They made me the most calm, and let's talk about that a little bit. So first we have traditional medicinals, organic nighty night. Now this, interestingly, has very different ingredients in it than nighty night extra, which we'll get to in just a minute. But this tea is basically a very solid amount of passion flower and chamomile. The other ingredients are frankly less interesting to me. It's linden flower, catnip herb, hop strobal, spearmint leaf, lemon verbena leaf, lemon peel, lemongrass leaf. Those things might do a little bit, but the thing that's packing the punch in here is that it's a large amount of passion flower and with chamomile. So you definitely feel it here. If you're just looking for a good passion flower tea, this is a pretty solid way to go, because it definitely packs a punch, and it definitely will take the edge off of anxiety symptoms for a lot of people if it works for you like it did for me. Next, we have organic nighty night extra, which actually has different ingredients in it. Strangely, it has organic valerian root is the #1 ingredient. They actually have a lesser amount of passion flower herb than there was in this one, which is just weird to me because they're calling it extra, that they have slightly less passion flower, but I guess it was too overwhelming otherwise. Then they have organic lemon balm leaf, peppermint leaf, organic caraway fruit, and licorice root. So obviously, there's some stuff in there that's gonna work in different ways. The most interesting to me are the valerian, passion flower, maybe even the lemon balm. But really, it's the valerian that I feel in this. The passion flower is doing its thing too, but the valerian, I've found valerian makes me sleepy. So if you're looking for sleep, this is probably well advertised as nighty night extra. Probably gonna be the best option out of all these teas. Even the ones mentioned before, probably this is the best option for actually going to sleep. The downside to that is it does make me drowsy. So even if I take it in the middle of the day, like, I'm just gonna feel a little more mentally numbed, a little bit like drowsy and tired. So it might not be the best option if you're just looking for relief of anxiety symptoms but not trying to go to bed. So that's something to think about. I believe that's the valerian in here that's doing that. Just something to keep in mind. The taste is okay. It's plain. The smell I don't like because it's got that valerian in it, but the taste is pretty plain. It's nothing bad. You can sweeten it up a little bit if you'd like. Finally, we have the winner, and actually I'm going to go into this one by itself in further detail. Yogi Bedtime Tea was my absolute favorite for relief of anxiety symptoms, and let's just focus on that one for a couple of minutes and really tell you how this worked for me. Okay, so this is the winner here, Yogi Bedtime Tea. This was the best tea for anxiety symptom relief for me. I think it would probably be for a lot of you guys as well, and that's just because, well, the ingredients were very, very purposeful. After doing all my research on the ingredients prior to this in this experiment, I'm looking through it, and it just makes sense. Every single ingredient seems to have a purpose from what I'm seeing. So let's talk a little bit about what's actually in this. All the ingredients, I believe, are organic, so I'm not going to say organic a million times, just put organic in front of the words I'm saying. So we got passion flower extract and valerian root as the, at the top. And then we have their proprietary blend of herbs, which include licorice root, chamomile flower, spearmint leaf, skullcap leaf, cardamom pod, cinnamon bark, rose hip, lavender flower, and stevia leaf. Now, Obviously, the heavy hitters in this are, again, the passion flower extract and the valerian root extract, kind of like the previous tea we just talked about, that 99 extra. However, the interesting thing about this is, well, first off, it's extract instead of saying the flower itself. I don't know how those dosages compare to one another. However, this one just felt better for me. So I'm gonna have to go with this dosage of the extract over their dosage of the just the flower, I think it was. But also, there's more passion flower in this than valerian. We have 33 milligrams of passion flower as opposed to 20 milligrams of valerian root. And I like this because this makes me less drowsy. The other one, the 99 extra, has more valerian than passion flower, and that actually makes me just feel drowsy and tired and ready for bed. Which, if that's your goal, that's great. That might be the better tea for you. But for me, I'm usually just looking for, relief from mild anxiety symptoms, which in this case, the passion flower is the better ingredient to go for. The valerian also probably helps, but I don't want too much of it because it's just going to make me drowsy. Then on top of this, like I said, we have licorice root, chamomile, skullcap, lavender. These are all ingredients that are very likely to help you with anxiety according to the studies that I've found. And then we also have things like spearmint, cardamom pod, cinnamon bark, that might help. There's some studies to suggest that they might help, but I'm, not going to make any promises. And then also we have rose hip and stevia leaf, which are, I assume, just there for extra flavoring, because this actually does taste really good. I'm not trying to sound salesy. This actually was my favorite tasting tea. It might be because it's already sweetened a little bit with the stevia leaf, but like I said, this actually tastes pretty good. Ultimately, what I really, really like about this is just the fact that the ingredients seem purposeful. A lot of those other teas we talked about, especially the ones in the lower tiers, tier 5, tier 4, tier 3, some of the ingredients just feel like they're thrown in there haphazardly. Like somebody making the tea said, I heard this is good. My grandma told me this is good for stress. Throw that in there. Like the ingredients are pretty well researched. The ingredients just seem purposeful. They're in effective dosages. I appreciate it. And it shows through it because the stuff works phenomenally well. So I really think they chose their ingredients well with this particular tea. So guys, I know it says bedtime right on the box here, but I don't want that to fool you. This tea is good, much more versatile than that, and you can use it in many situations beyond just bedtime. This doesn't make me drowsy or anything like that, so I don't need to take it just before bed. I can take it in the morning, throughout the day, before any type of stressful situation, and it's not gonna necessarily make me fall asleep. It just makes me feel a little bit more relaxed, more calm, takes the edge off of mild anxiety symptoms for me. Nothing crazy, but it doesn't necessarily lull me to sleep or make me drowsy or anything like that. The main benefit of this is that I like to take it before any sort of situation where my anxiety might be mild and not necessarily warrant a more powerful anxiety supplement. So maybe I'm going to the dentist and I just have a routine cleaning or something like that. I'm just a little stressed out, that I have to sit still and not fidget, and someone's putting tools in my mouth and stuff like that. So I might be a little bit stressed out. This might be a good time to take that, or before a haircut or something like that where you're stuck sitting in place. You might feel a little claustrophobic, or just mild anxiety symptoms. That's when I think that this stuff really shines through, especially because, there is stuff that might work better, but this is safer to use more likely, more often. Now, that's where this really, really shines through is, there are stronger supplements out there. There are stronger anxiety supplements, but this is probably going to be safer. It's not going to be habit forming or anything like that. You can drink it much more often than some of the other stuff out there that's more powerful or might otherwise make you build a tolerance or something like that. So that's where this really shines through. Something else I really, really like about this particular tea is I like to use it for anxiety. So I have a whole article, a whole video about this. Feel free to check it out. But if you guys ever go out drinking with friends, have a little bit of alcohol in your system, the next day or two, you might find that you have that rebound anxiety. So your brain is compensating for everything you did to it that night, and now you're feeling more stressed, more anxious, more jittery, more just not good than usual. And that's, what I call anxiety, and there's different ways to manage that. We talk about that on the site, but this is a really, really, really good way to help you manage that. The ingredients like passion flower, I believe, just help to give you a little bit of GABA boost in the brain that help with that GABA rebound that we experience after a heavy night of drinking. So I'm telling you, I swear by this. I drink this almost every single day after a night of drinking because it just helps me avoid those anxiety symptoms, that those night sweats and just stuff like that. So this is really, really good for that. Now, will this be enough to tackle severe anxiety symptoms? Probably not. No, I wouldn't say so. But, you know, obviously for severe or occasional anxiety, there might be better, stronger anxiety supplements out there. However, for mild or more frequent anxiety symptoms, I genuinely believe that this is the best option out there, just because you can take it a little bit more often and it's not going to, most likely not going to have as much of a toll on your body. Like I said, feel free to talk to your doctor. I highly recommend you do, to make sure that these ingredients are good for you or that you can use them to tackle your own anxiety symptoms. But for me, they worked incredibly at taking on my anxiety symptoms and just make me feel way more calm, way more relaxed. The passion flower, the valerian, all the other stuff in here just works really, really well together, really synergistically. And that's why this is my #1 tea in the tier 1 supplement. This is, in my opinion, the best tea for anxiety symptoms, and it's an easy recommendation for me. Yogi Bedtime Tea, that is. So definitely check it out for yourself. Now, if you guys are looking to prepare tea on your own at home the way that I do it, I use a Keurig machine. You don't necessarily need that. All you need is hot water. I pour it, put the tea bag in, I follow the instructions on the tea. Usually it's like 7 minutes or something like that. I think that's what it is for the Yogi Bedtime Tea, at least. You put it in for like 7 minutes, take the tea out, wrap it around the spoon, squeeze out that extra juice so you get all those ingredients in there. And you know, you might want to sweeten it. I would avoid sweetening it with honey or sugar or anything like that, because those little blood sugar rushes that you get, especially before bed, can cause a little bit of jitteriness, and they might be worse for your anxiety symptoms. So I would just stick to like stevia or something like that if you must sweeten it. But some of these teas don't even need that at all. Like the Yogi Bedtime Tea is already pretty good tasting, honestly. So I don't add sweetener to it or anything. But yeah, just follow the instructions on there. Some of them recommend that if you need a little bit more of a boost, it's okay to use 2 bags of tea. I wouldn't do that unless it specifically says it's okay to do so. But for most teas, I think that's no problem. So check that out. Give it a try. Make some for yourself. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to link below to where you can buy. Probably I'll put links for all the teas, but most importantly, I want to put the link for that Yogi Bedtime Tea, just in case you can't find it in a store near you. I think you would be able to, but I'm going to put a link there anyway, and I might also put some links for some of the tools I use to prepare the tea. Not necessary by any means, but feel free to check that stuff out. I want to show you guys exactly how I do it. But that's it for today, guys. Like I said, Yogi Bedtime Tea has been the best tea for anxiety symptom relief for me. I would love to hear what you guys use. I would love to hear if you have a brand I didn't mention or you disagree with one of the teas that I brought up. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear why, or any ingredients that I missed. Let me know, guys. And if this was helpful to you, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share with friends, anyone that it might help. Thank you so much for sticking to the end, guys. I will see you next time.